All right. Welcome, ladies. Welcome back to our evening session here of Nectar, the Well-Nourished Woman. We just were closing out with my dear sister Taj, and we're going to be welcoming my sister Lila in just under an hour. And so, with the time we have, I wanted to, number one, introduce myself to some of you. I realized that some of you may be new, and we started this morning so action-packed. And I will share a little bit, when you have so many different teachers in different time zones and things, it just so happened that my girlfriend Aliona, who was in Poland, her only time slot was like the opening slot. And I'm so glad we had her open, but it meant that I didn't introduce myself at all. So here we are, it's the evening, and I'm super happy to be here and sharing. My name is Maria Teresa. If we haven't met yet, I'm calling in from Peru as per usual. I live here with my daughter in the Sacred Valley in the Andes Mountains. My mother is Venezuelan, as I was sharing with the other Maria here. My father is Peruvian. He was born and raised here in Peru, but they both went to the States for college, and they met and they decided to stay. And so I was born in the US. So I always joke that I'm a kind of fully Latin-blooded woman with a US operating system. Maria, I know you get that. So the Latina comes through in strong ways, but then so does the California girl. And yeah, the inspiration for this experience, my goodness, it goes back so far. I'm gonna kind of share as we all could. It's like it began when I was born in 1986, but we'll start a little bit sooner than that. But the nugget that I do want to share of my story and why it's so relevant to this is that, I well, I also want to name my mom was on here earlier. She's not now, but mom, if you're watching the recording, I'm going to talk a little bit about our family. I was raised, as many of us were, in, in an environment that, again, it was a bit status quo, if we want to say that, right? It was just like kind of a life of this is how we do things. And I, from the beginning, came out of the womb and was like, I don't want to do it this way. I want to do it something completely different. And the way I want to do it, I don't even see any, I don't see any examples of that. And so I definitely was, now we joke, you call it the black sheep of the family. Then if you've seen the meme, there's like the psychedelic sheep of the family. So whatever we want to call that, I was that one of my family. I am that one of my family that's like, you know what? Why don't we just turn this whole thing, upside down and do it that way? Which to me seems much more normal, right? I actually used to joke that I lived an upside down world. It was like this world that like, did I get off on the wrong bus stop? This does not seem like we're doing everything backwards and upside down and inside out. And so for a lot of my life, that really supported me when I was young, right? Because I had this kind of natural spunk, this natural, like, do things my own way, go to my own beat of my own drum, pursue the things I was interested in, even if nobody else around me was really interested in those things. Now, again, in some ways that made me feel very alone, right? I was kind of like that nerdy girl that was always had her nose in a book. And at the same time, I think that was really attractive to the kids, other kids my age, that were kind of like, she's kind of doing her own thing. She doesn't really care, And so I was very welcomed into a certain group when I was in my adolescence. And I share all this because I hit a point in my adolescence. I was about 16, 17, where I had created this external life, almost unbeknownst to me, but not at the same time, if that makes sense. That was very much about it was very much about being what everybody wanted me to be. I had gone from like beating my own drum, and then all of a sudden I realized, like, oh, these kind of cool kids like me, or my dad really likes it when I get straight A's, or when I'm on the cover of the newspaper for my sports, and so I started to notice, like, oh, the external world really reacts to me differently if I'm really thin, all these things that we as women are like, we create these it's like basically we collude, right? Like we agree with society that we're like, yeah, this is the way that it should be. And so all of a sudden I saw like why my parents live the lives they live, right? Because it's so easy to conform to what everybody else around you is doing and what everybody else around you wants you to be. And so I, at 16 years old, was, on track to be the valedictorian. I was the captain of 4 varsity sports teams in a 3-season year, which means I was playing 2 sports at the same time. I was the only person in the history of my high school that was ever allowed to do that. I have a long story, but I was the #1 cross country runner at the same time as I was the #1 tennis player. And because I was at the top, they let me kind of like, I would go to a tennis match and then practice, like do my cross country training in the evening. I'd literally go knock on my coach's door and be like, I'm clocking in for my training now, at the time that everyone was having dinner, So I was just pushing myself. I was pushing myself, at all ends, like burning the candle at all ends. At the same time, I had developed very serious eating disorders because, again, I had the story that the lighter I was, the faster I was with my sports, and the better, more attention I had from, again, I got positive attention from my dad. Like, that's the Latin thing. Oh, you're taking care of your figure, and the boys at school were looking at me different. And so again, I just learned that, well, this is a good thing. Why don't I continue to starve myself at the same time as I'm outputting, so much athletic and mental energy. And as you can imagine, where the story goes, it's like something had to give. And I had a big break, and I had a physical break. I actually broke my foot. I created what is called the female athlete triad, which is essentially early onset osteoporosis. I was so malnourished that my body was leaching the minerals from my bones, and I snapped a bone in my foot during a track final my junior year. Um, but that break was so symbolic, right? It was symbolic of an internal break. It was symbolic of like reaching a point that like there's no more room to give here. You are just drawing from literally from my bones. That's how malnourished I was. And now you can imagine again on a spiritual level where I was at. I was just so confused. Like, who am I within all of this? And so that junior year, I was crossing the finish line. I won, as I did, back then was always, but I cracked the bone literally as I crossed the finish line. And I laugh a lot, and you'll learn this about me. I laugh at my own most intense moments. Sorry, I'm getting a WhatsApp call here. Let me mute her. But yeah, so I was crossing the finish line, and I literally fell. So in the movie of my life, it would be like a slow motion, I literally fell across the finish line, and they had to surgically remove the shoe from my foot. And I remember going to what's the name of the doctor that takes care of your feet. But anyhow, she said, I've never seen anything like this. You had a stress fracture, and stress fractures are usually so painful that they stop people, but you didn't stop. She's like, I've never seen somebody continue to run through that pain until they crack the bone clean in half. So again, you can imagine like what I was pulling on in terms of like a raw life force, trying to force myself to fit into something that wasn't who I was. And so when I, crash landed on the other side of that finish line, my whole world imploded. If I couldn't run, who was I? If I couldn't be an athlete, who was I? And I was at that time very anorexic. And when I crash landed on the other side, my body was so malnourished. Now here I was in a cast, and I couldn't even walk to go to school. So I just sat at home, and it was like my body was going to be fed, right? So I started binge eating. And then from there I was like, oh no, that eating disordered part of me. And then I started making myself throw up. And so I should maybe make this a trigger warning here, but we're going to talk about some deep things. But that eating disorder, talk about so humbling, right? Like I can only really share the humility of spending so many years with my face literally in the toilet, where I was just coming all the way back down, like all those accolades were stripped from me. I dropped out of high school. I thought, if I can't be an athlete, they told me I couldn't run anymore. It was like, if I can't be an athlete, I don't want to go to college, right? And so I went from all these laundry list of things to none of that, No valedictorian status because I dropped out of school. No front cover of the newspaper. You know what I mean? No more attention from my dad or men because I was puffy faced all the time and I was just like in so much agony in my own body. And I got really depressed, like really depressed, like suicidally depressed. And bless my parents' hearts, like what they knew to do was to look at their insurance and say, my daughter's sick. Here's the mind doctor, right? They send you to the psychologist who sends you to the psychiatrist. For me, sent me the psychiatrist. And, after 5 minutes with a psychiatrist at 16 years old. Now, again, remember, I'm a young Latin woman with very severe eating disorders. And they send me to this older white guy, bless his beautiful heart, who just like had no context, like zero context for who I was and what I was dealing with, right? And he didn't even look at me. I went with my parents. He talked to my parents the whole time. So 5 minutes in an office with a psychiatrist who never even looked me in the eyes. He talked to my parents about me as though I weren't even there, and then had the audacity, bless again his beautiful heart, to try to give me a diagnosis and a label and tell my parents she will have to be medicated for the rest of her life. That was the, if we want to call it the sentence I was given at 16 years old, was you will either, three choices, he basically said, you will either be medicated for the rest of your life, you'll be institutionalized, or you will be dead. Oh my God, such an interesting moment for the balloons. The balloons to come. That's my personality, right? I could laugh through the tears. But so these are the three things I was told. And I share all this because this path that I entered upon was essentially at the time I was too much of a good girl to say fuck you to all that, but that was my energy. It was like, no, thank you. I choose none of those, I choose none of those. I believe that there's a way for me to live a healthy life that does not equal me being on 12 medications for the rest of my life. I mean, literally for him to even read out the side effects of all those medications took longer than it did for him to try to give me this diagnosis, which ultimately was completely out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, I will be honest, at the time, now, excuse me, I look back, I'm like, I was essentially undiagnosed ADHD, but the point is that he just looked at these symptoms and said, this is what it is. Here's all the medications. Here's all the side effects. Go, here's the rest of your life. And I just said, no, and now again, I want to name. I'm not the person to say that Western medicine does not have its place. I'm not the person to say that there's never time for medications. I'm just saying that for me and my experience, from my internal experience, I was like, this is not right. This is not what's true for me. I don't want to numb what I'm feeling. What I'm feeling is really valid. I was really confused and I was really lost, and I had a whole bunch of repressed trauma coming up that no one knew how to help me deal with. Right. And the world around me, again, in my household, what I saw, and not just my household, again, I want to name that, like what I saw in my friends' parents as well, was like, you just do the thing, you have a glass of wine or 5 at the end of a work day, if you weren't fulfilled, or if you're not happy, you take some antidepressants. And again, I want to name, I want to be really clear that this is delicate territory, but I'm just sharing that as a totality. It's like, I believe that medication is important for a small percentage of people. But when you look around and every single adult around you is self-medicating in some way or being medicated in some way, that's what I'm speaking about. There's this moment where you're like, this can't be it. This can't be like God said, that we are all going to end up adults that have to alter our minds, our physiologies with external things just to survive. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And so this path, I'm going to share all this because I started walking this path because I thought, I want to feel me. I want to feel what's true for me. And yes, we all want to, we do these practices to alter our state, right? It's not about not ever altering our state, but it's about this internal alchemy versus this external energy, right? Of like, again, the bottle of wine or the shopping or the sex or the, XYZ, whatever the thing is, the ways that we self-medicate to make ourselves feel better, that change the channel from actually being present, from dropping in. And this is what I love so much about the tantric path. It's not about shooting out of our bodies, and only existing in the stars and talking to the galactic people. And I freaking love that shit. But that's not like the totality of life, right? Like, we exist in these bodies, and the tantric path allows us to drop in and down, and I love this book, Mary Magdalene book, that is all about like Mary Magdalene's path was a path of descent, not a path of ascension. Now, again, we're all growing and evolving, and I actually believe the truth is both, right? It's like we are going higher at the same time as we're going deeper. And this is why I use this kind of, if we want to call it a tagline, but that we root to rise, right? We want to drop in so deep, 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 deep down, like that story of Inanna, into the underworld, into the truth and the essence of who we are, at the same time, sprout up to the highest highs of divinity. And the beauty is that both those places exist right here, right now, inside of our own bodies. And when we can drop into our own womb space, again, whether you have a physical womb or not, that space, it's a portal, we can access the whole of the universe through the portal. And so again, this process, like this path, I should say, has supported me to prove, not that I was trying to prove anything, but if I were to ever meet that man again 30 years later, however many years later, to say like, that didn't turn out to be true for me. I didn't need to be heavily medicated. I didn't need to be institutionalized. And thank goddess that today, I'm not dead. And these tools, these very tools that all the women above, that have come before and the ones who will come after, I love this lineage, right? On this beautiful weekend are sharing these tools. And they all have stories like this, maybe they didn't go so deep into each one of their individual stories, but that's where I want to share, like, these women were made, like this, they walk this path of devotion, and now they have blossomed, right? But they have been to the underworld. Every single woman who's going to come on and share this weekend has been to the depths of the underworld. I can promise you that, because they're my best friends. And from that place, they have been able to access something that is so rich and so true and so expansive and so magnetic and so, XYZ, fill in the blank, that they're able to give their gifts to the world. And so we, as the one woman, as the Janet, this is available to all of us. And so I want to welcome each one of you women. If you feel to share, again, I was sharing, we haven't had a real space yet to like share our actual voices. We've been typing in the chat, and that's wonderful and beautiful. But for me, like when I teach and have in my own circles, most of the time is us sharing, is us listening to each other, is us receiving each other. So for my time, I would love to open it up to, again, can be small, can be, here's my name, here's where I'm from, here's what drew me here, what I feel like is here for me, or here's something I'm working on, that I'm working through, or that I'm offering to the world. It's really open in terms of prompt, but the most important thing to me is that that your voice really matters here, your presence matters here. I'd like to know your real names as much as I love being the one Janet. So I'm going to open it up to popcorn style shares for whoever feels to begin.
I would like to start. So, hello everybody. I'm also Maria, or the other Maria, or the other Janet, whatever way you want to look at it. I will say, well, first, thank you, Maria, for holding this space and bringing in all these amazing women that are definitely inspirational in so many ways. You guys are like the stars, that are guiding us as we go through all these things that sometimes we don't even know how to digest. So thank you for that. And about me, well, let's see, I landed here in an interesting way. As I was telling Maria before many of you joined, I have been following her on Instagram for probably like a couple years now, but I'm not very active in social media. However, I went through my own version of Underworld pretty recent. Like my entire life fell apart in ways that I didn't even know it was possible. So then looking for becoming my own refugee, it's how I got here. Like I'm getting all emotional. I actually have teared up many times today being here because it's so beautiful, so beautiful to see all of this. I'm an engineer by trade, so my masculine is very strong, and to top that, I actually work in oil and gas. So talking about being masculine, aggressive, and just output all the way through, that's how my career has been built. So being here, I'm still training up, I'm sorry. Being here and exploring this other side is just, oh, this is just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sister. I'm crying too. And all of you is welcome here. All of you is welcome here. All of each one of you is welcome here. Again, we're gonna laugh through our tears, and and we're gonna just tear up. That's what I loved so much about what Taj was sharing of the messiness. Like, I want you in your realest, most authentic you. So thank you so much for feeling safe enough and brave enough to bring your tears, to bring the truth of where you are in your process. And you are exactly the type of woman that I created this for, because we are all in this path again of the becoming and the unbecoming, of the melting into the nothingness and the blooming, and this space is for us no matter where we are on that journey, because it's not linear, right? We're going to all go through these cycles. There's going to be moments that I'm going to be like, and I have been the last year, like in a complete cocoon, puddle on the floor, like, what is happening? So we're here for that. So thank you so much, Maria. I'm so grateful to see you on all the sessions, and just to feel your presence. Your presence is very much felt here. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else who feels to share?
I can share.
Thank you.
Hello. Um, thank you so much for everyone who's been here. It's been a very special day. So thank you for holding the space, creating the space. It's been a privilege. I was drawn to this through Isis, who is speaking, I believe, tomorrow. I've been working with, I believe, one of her teachers as well, Norman D. Ellis, and very much into Egyptian cosmology. And I've been walking, I would say they've been walking the path for about 12 years, and worked with shamanic medicine and plant medicine and dietas, and cacao is a medicine that I carry. And so it just felt very much like, what, that sounds lovely. Like, let's come and just share stories and wisdom and connect and receive. So it's been such a lovely day. So thank you for that. It's been beautiful to tune into the frequency of what's being created. I've been loving it, watching my life tune and pivot to that this week. So it's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's the other something that's so fun about all this, is that we're all from these kind of centrifugal circles of community, right? So it's so fun for me to find out how you arrived here, because yeah, Isis is I will share my love letter of devotion about Isis tomorrow when I'm sure you've seen a theme here. I am like so in love with every single one of these women. But I'll wait to share my love letter about her. But thank you so much. Yeah, so good to know how you arrived here and what you're passionate about. Thank you. If anybody else feel to share, feel free to unmute yourself and just pop right on in.
Hola, I'll share a little bit. I don't know, my lighting is s- sundown now, so I was having a little cuddle listening to you guys speak. My name is Dani. I am in Costa Rica, and I found this through my work actually. I'm an assistant, and my boss is in your newsletter subscription thing, and I saw it and I was like, oh, this is for me actually, because so I just signed up for it and it was perfect. Um yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly where to share from. Same as everyone, I'm very grateful to be here and to have real practices to incorporate. There's been a miscommunication, I want to say, in some way, not miscommunication, but some things I see and then the actual practice has been lacking. I'm stuck a little bit in this way of doing things, and I find myself constantly breaking my own heart. So I'm just like, okay, how can I live differently? So that's why I'm here for. I even like part of this is even this job that I got here. I'm like, is this for me? Where is this coming from? Why am I here in this way? Why does it feel like this? So it's a lot happening. So yeah, I even, and this might be an extra tidbit, but I've been getting a few headaches lately. Like I never have migraines or headaches or anything. My eyes have been hurting, and I'm like, I doubt that this is some coincidence. I feel like even my body right now is screaming like, what is happening? Because I've been getting signals and I keep sort of doing the same, and it's like a veil that I can't finish taking off, or that I haven't. So okay, I ranted. Thank you. And yeah, softly, just reminders of coming back to this, right? Even when I'm pushed back or my mind takes me to the same roll arounds, the same Ferris wheels of just hurt and not doing things that feel well, that feel good for me, right? So I'm happy to find more and more practices and spots that I can fully ground in and make a difference and walk differently. Feel it's time to walk differently now. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you for grounding us just in the reality of your life, and again, experiences that so many of us have had and will continue to have. And that's, I think, what I also wanted to get to with sharing my story is like, these are not small things that we're doing. Right? This is not, yes, we want to create the most pleasurable, easeful, amazing lives. And, we are collectively and individually up against a lot, right? And this is where I talk about, this is why I will share, I talk about systems change so much. You know, we need to change the systems. We need to change the narratives collectively. This is like we're swimming in this soup, that we are these kind of rebels and revolutionaries. And yeah, like we're committed and we're devoted, and it's hard because life is not set up to support us in this way, right? Most of us have had the experience of like, I'm working a job that I don't resonate with, but I don't have anyone to pay my bills, right? Like I have to take care of myself and I have to exist in this world as it is at the same time as I am claiming something new for myself, you know? And this is why you will hear me in so many of my posts talking about us as a collective, right? It's not enough, me personally, I will share for me, like I'll be honest, I live this beautiful life in Peru, but it's not enough for me to be like, I am just stoked and that's it. Now we're done, right? It's like, where are my ladies? Like, what's going on for you out there? I want to know, I want to hear from you. And I want you to know that I'm here with you on this process. There's this beautiful quote, and I'm going to blank on the name, the person. I'll find it and put it in the chat here. But the quote basically is, if you came here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you came here because your liberation is wrapped up in mine, then let us work together. Brings me to tears every time I share it. So I want you to know that's why I'm here, because our liberation is wrapped up together. It's not because like I have it all figured out and I'm here to, you know, to tell you ladies what to do with your lives. It's to tell you like, I'm here with you. Here's some things that have really worked for me. Here's some things that have really worked for the women in my life. And let's figure it out together, you know, but it's going to look really unique for each one. But knowing that you're not alone makes a big difference. So just know that we are here for you, Danny. I love that story of how it was in your boss's inbox and you were like, that's for me. Yes, girl, this is for you. Thank you for being here with us. Anybody else who feels to share, please unmute yourself.
I'll share. Hi, beautiful sisters. My name is Allison Good. I'm happy to be here, and I want to apologize for missing a lot of today. I was actually working. So my plan is tomorrow I've set aside the day to focus on this container. And I live in Laguna Beach, California. I was raised here and also in Hawaii, in Maui, on the north side of Maui in Haiku. And I'm noticing myself getting a little nervous. Let's see. It's gonna take a moment to breathe. Yeah, so I was raised around beautiful ocean life, and when I was 13, my mom moved to Maui, and I was introduced, that was 1993. So I was introduced to a lot of practices and spirituality at that time. That's when I started my yoga practice and started to sit in Anipi sweat lodges, and was really drawn to Ram Dass was around then. It was just a really fun era to be a teenager and be exposed to a lot of the spiritual ways. And I wound up going to Humboldt State. And when I was about 18 or 19, I went to my first Native American church ceremony and sat in a teepee and wound up meeting a roadman who became my father through the making of relation ceremonies. His name, he's passed now, but his name was Derwin White Lightning, from Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, full-blood Dakota Sioux. And we had an immediate recognition, connection, and I wound up traveling and working with him for about 5 or 6 years. He was a sun dancer and ran sweat lodge and teepee ceremonies in the Native American church. So yeah, it's vulnerable for me to talk about this. I can feel it in my body. So I was gifted an altar very young in the Native American church in the peyote way. And his understanding from what Spirit was sharing with him. So this was around 98, 2000. He carried Eagle Condor altar, our White Lightning altar. the messages coming from spirit were about the women taking the ceremonies back. So in the traditional ways, the men had, I'm not sure how many of you all have sat in the teepee before, but men tend to kind of run the officer positions as well as natives. And he had 7 blood children, but his children were going kind of more of the Western path. So he adopted people into his altar to teach us the ways, the songs, the languages. And I was pretty young. I was young. There was a lot of like misunderstanding, first being non-native and then second being a woman and being young. So all those 3 components created this like backlash to really stepping into that work. And I wound up, after about 5 or 6 years of studying and training with him, moving back to Hawaii. My mom got sick and I went back over there. And then at 28, so from 28 to 30 during Saturn return, I had 3 major parent deaths. I lost my mom, first my stepdad, then my mom, and then Derwin, who actually passed away in jail on Standing Rock Reservation in kind of an unknown accident that occurred. And so I went through these 3 deaths, and it actually spun me into using alcohol. So I believe I carry the addiction or the allergy to alcohol. And there's a lot of shame for me around that, especially being like in the medicine space really young and kind of being raised in these spiritual ways, and then alcohol being this way of like numbing out this grief that I didn't really know how to deal with all that. So I spent about 5 years going into a wine drinking thing that lasted from like 29 to 33. And so that was definitely my shadow time, a lot of like dark energy for me to shadow, just so much compacted grief that I didn't know how to deal with. And then, of course, just adding all the shame and unhealthy relationships and sexual interactions and just a lot. And so I wound up coming out of that at 33 and getting sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to the program. I really needed that foundation, and I rebuilt my life. And at a year and a half sober, I started to work in the treatment facility. So I built an art therapy. I'm an artist, a breathwork facilitator, and I teach art therapy. And I had this beautiful blessing to be able to build this program and work here in Orange County with over 30,000 clients now and teaching 3,500 art therapy and breathwork groups. And so I felt like I really got into my Dharma work like through my sobriety, but during that time I was sober. So I entered kind of this sober period. So no plant medicines, no cannabis, no alcohol, total 8 years of work commitment, clearing karma. And then I started to really get a call to come back to the medicines. And especially after seeing in the traditional mental health field, kind of the need for some alternatives to, rather than, because I see so many people that get put onto all the prescription meds and stuff. So I started to go back to working with the plants about 3 years ago. I've done some ceremonies. I went back originally to grandmother, did about 5 big ceremonies working with ayahuasca, and then found Wachuma through this last experience of coming back to her. And so, yeah, I still live in Laguna and I'm working in the rehabs and I really love my life. And I also have this shadowed part of my medicine womanness of that aspect of me. So Instagram's been a fun place because I get to follow all these medicine women and these women that are like out there and they're talking about it and they're being vulnerable. And that to me is like, takes a lot of courage, and it's something that I haven't totally found a voice for because of feeling afraid of there's so many different components of working in rehabs. There's that component. There's being a white woman with the Native American church altar and all this kind of fear around that. So Maria, with you, I feel like it's funny because we haven't met and you watch people's journeys. So it's almost like, you know a little bit about like their journey. And I've seen you evolving, and like your radiance is really like magnified, and I feel like you've come into your like voice, and you're talking about who you are and what you're doing and expressing about your journey, and that was really inspiring to me. And I really like the post about alcohol a week or two ago. I feel like that's a really important topic in the spiritual space. And for me, it's important, like, people that are leaders and teachers, it's important to be brought up and addressed. And yeah, so that's just a little bit about me, sister. So thank you. I know I went on for a little bit, but thanks for holding space for that share.
Thank you so much. Wow. That was rich and wide and deep, and I have so much to share. I'll keep it in a nugget for now, but I just want to say thank you. This is what is being asked of us as leaders and as women, is again to be authentic. And we share about authenticity. It's not just, again, the shiny parts of the authenticity. It's the real stuff, And so, yeah, it's an edge sometimes to share the parts of ourselves that we're like, I don't know how this is going to be received, And even more recently, as you see, like it's funny that it goes hand in hand. It's like I feel more radiant and magnetic and with my voice than ever. And it means it's what's being asked of me is to share even more, right? It's like a new edge of like, okay, now I got to reveal this. Not have to, but it's like it's being asked of me, and it feels true, And so sharing things like my journey with alcohol is strong, and I've been open about it, and I will continue to be. Again, these things are not linear. Like I've carried this on both sides of my lineage. And when I first got into the medicine world years ago, it was like, I'm good now. I've done all the combo and all the iboga and all the bufo and all the ayahuasca. I'm good, And then COVID happened. And I don't know about any of you, but I went from traveling the world, serving hundreds of people medicine, and being so in an output. Like I was so focused on the external. I was holding space for everybody's everything, but I was not holding space for my own stuff. I didn't even have the time to think about that. And then COVID happened, and it was like, and I literally, again, I know we all have our own stories, but I moved the day that lockdown was announced. I moved from a community home into a tiny little studio all by myself. And so lockdown happened, and I literally, tiny little space, was beautiful, it was in Topanga, but it was like, this is your moment, girl. This is you and you. And I wish I could say I handled that so well, but I didn't. It was like, I'm really uncomfortable. I'm going to have a glass of wine, and then another, because I'm by myself, And I went down a really deep, dark rabbit hole. And this is after almost a decade of holding space for other people and being looked at as this like high and mighty medicine woman. And so for me to share that publicly is like, here's the real. Here's what it's like being human. It's not linear. We're going to have moments again where we're literally so humbled, like we've got our face in the freaking dirt. And bless the Mother Earth, that's a great place to be sometimes, but you know what I mean? Like on our knees in that place. And so again, when I share with you that I'm here with you as your peer, I mean that. I'm here with you. We're all figuring this out together, and I have been through a certain iterations, and you've been through certain iterations, and we're going to keep sharing, and we're going to keep growing together. And those things that you hit up against where you're like, I don't know how to do this being a white woman with a Native American, church altar, that's a real thing. And I can't tell you I have all the answers for you in this moment, but I can tell you, like, we can unpack that together. Me and you, the group, you know what I mean? Like as women, this is to me the council model that has been so lost. I'm such a proponent for the council model where women come, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, like I'm sitting here on the floor because we're all together. It's just like that technology of sitting in circle, of sitting in the teepee, you know, it's even that person who's leading the ceremony. We're all sitting around that fire, right? We are all the same fundamentally, even with our uniquenesses. And so the ability to be able to have a safe space with other women who are like, here's what's real. Here's what's true. Here's what I'm working with. Here's the places that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but I know that I'm devoted, you know, and I want to live this rich, beautiful life, you know, and I want to be in service and I want to do good. I want to support the web of life in a way that also supports me. Right. And that's where I feel like we're doing something fundamentally different. We haven't really seen that before. I feel maybe in, you know, a generation that I was not present for, but I haven't seen women being able to show up in the strength, you know, in the fullness of their power and also the softness of their vulnerabilities. Right. And say, like, I don't have all the answers, but I feel like together we do. You know, if we pool everyone's perspective and everyone's life experience and everyone's vantage points, you know, we're going to get close to whatever the truth actually is. And from that place, we can make decisions that, you know, that really help the whole systemically. Again, from the education system, the health system, the stuff that sometimes, as I was sharing before, like we as women were like, I'm not political, you know, I'm not here to make that type of change. And yet we are. I want to break it to you, you know, with all of our decisions, with where we spend our money, you know, with what kind of content we're watching, like everything that we do, we are actually casting a vote for the world we want to see. So why not, you know, come back, grab that power back again in a beautiful way and say, you know what? If I'm contributing to the whole, let me do it with my eyes wide open again. Let me do it consciously. Let me do it with awareness. And so I actually think we lost our beautiful sister here who was just sharing, but I'm here with you, girl. Oh no, there you are. You just moved. You moved in my view. I just want to name that we're all here together figuring this out and again creating things that work for all of us. And that last thing I want to name, you know, Elizabeth Bast, for example, this is where all the different speakers, also some of the things you're sharing, I'm like, oh, this links back, you know. Elizabeth runs a program called Green and Sober. I freaking love it. She's like, yeah, we can be sober from the things that like are really stripping the life force from us, but we can also be present with these medicines, you know, and something like AA that has been changed millions and millions and millions of lives, you know, and yet also again has some rigid dogmas that tell you it's either or. Right? You can like either explore your own psyche through the gift of these plants that Pachamama and, you know, Father, Mother, God have gifted us, or, you know, you can be healthy and healed and sober. It's like, well, wait, I think we can do both. And again, this is the tantric path. This is the feminine path, is to take these seeming polarities and be like, well, both are true. You know, I can be really healthy and happy and sober from my own addiction, from the thing that really was sucking the life force out of me, that I was in collusion with and that an unhealthy pattern with. And I can explore, you know, I can have cognitive liberty. That's really important for us as humans. You know, you will see me again. I am deeply political in certain ways. Like the fact that plants are illegal will never be okay with me. I will never agree to that. You know, these plants are the gifts from our mother. And yes, do we need to use them well? 100%. Do you know what I mean? We need to come with them with humility. Is it good to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves, you know, and go slow, you know, all these things? Absolutely. Yes, I am a huge fan of. And this is part of our birthright as humans. And you as a woman, you know, I know it feels like I'm a white woman in the Native American, but you are a woman. And going back to Taj's talk, I'm not sure if you were here for that, you know, the essence of your DNA is indigenous to some land, right? You carry the earth, but you carry, this is we say the latido, right? Like the beat, that heartbeat that you carry, it's gonna make me cry, is the heartbeat of the earth, you know? That's the womb that we all baked in, just like the womb of our mothers. We're like, that was the beat that we heard for those 10 months. We were all in the womb. We all heard that beat. That is the heartbeat of the Mother Earth. That is the heartbeat of the earth-based wisdom. That is the heartbeat of what is true. And we all carry that. Doesn't matter what skin color you are. It doesn't matter what lineages you've studied in. That is true. And you get to choose, how you present that to the world. If you don't want to, put yourself out there as part of the Native American church, that's your choice. That's absolutely up to you, and the truth of you as a medicine woman, nobody can take that from you. No matter if you're an art therapist or you're whatever you're doing, that's the essence. That's part of that dharma. And my beautiful teacher Brooke that I see here, she talks about this dharmic revolution. Like, what a different world are we going to live in when every single woman is showing up in this way? Like, this is the essence of me. Nothing you say or do can take this from me. Your opinions, your projections. This is the truth. And I think this is the thing we don't talk about. This is a whole rabbit hole that I'm not necessarily going to get into right now, but I think the piece that we don't talk about when we talk about the witch burnings, for example, such a dark time in history in so many ways. And yet we've all seen, whether it's movies or we heard stories, that women had an opportunity. It was like, condemn yourself or save yourself, right? By saying, I'm not this thing. Save yourself. Admit that you're not a medicine woman, admit that you're not a woman, carrying what you carry, having the womb of creation, talking to the plants. And these women were like, I can't do that. Because nothing you say or do, you can burn me, whatever. Nothing can take that from me. And that is, again, this tantric way of putting things, when we talk about putting things on the fire, that's what we mean. It's like we can try to burn it, but what's true can actually not go. It's just going to strengthen it. And what doesn't serve and what's not true is going to burn away. And so for me, just bringing this whole thing home, that over COVID, having probably, other than that moment where I was suicidally depressed, at 16, 17 years old, that moment 3 years ago was one of the hardest moments I've ever been through. And for me to be here now, hearing this reflection of you saying like, wow, Maria, you feel so radiant and magnetic and owning your voice. I'm like, yeah, girl, again, I died, I put myself, my whole life, my whole identity on the fire. And what you see and feel here is what was left, because it's what's true. And so I want that for every single woman on this call, again, listening to the recordings, being welcomed into our communities. Like, this is what I'm here for, is for every single one of you to be able to touch for you what is true, and what, again, nobody's opinion, nobody's projection can ever change. And with that, then to have that courage to share that with the world, because that's what the world needs. And so thank you for listening for all of that. I wanted to name that it's 7 p.m. I would love to I see Lila here. I have Lila, we're in the middle of shares, which I keep hijacking. I'm just kidding, but I did want to offer that we might have one more beautiful sister who wants to share, or maybe two. So Lila, if you're open, we might go a few minutes over.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sister.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Good morning from Bali. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's beautiful to be here.
Thank you, Mama. So if we want to have any more shares, again, feels important for me to hear your voices. If that feels true, do not feel forced, and I will keep mine. Have more to share tomorrow. I will make notes of your shares and share later. If anybody feels to speak their voices, their names, how you arrived here, and what called you, what you're hoping to receive from this container.
So I'm just going to pop on because I saw my dear sister Rebecca pop on, and she is how I connected with you. So I just wanted to say hello to her and thank you to her for connecting me to you. Because as you know, I've hopped on with you the last couple months, and everything is just really, everything you say speaks to me. You're so nourishing. I connect with you on so many levels. And the fact that you are offering this weekend as a gift is just so special. And it is incredible. And I am so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. I love having you here. Thank you. And thank you, Rebecca. I saw her pop on too. I don't know if you're in a place where you can share. I'd love to see you and hear you, Mama.
Hi, sweet love. Hi, I'm happy to be here. Hi, Christina. Oh my goodness. And Maria, it's been so long. I'm calling in from Maui, and we are finishing up some case management. Been doing disaster relief here since the fires in Lahaina, and just so grateful to be able to absorb any of this nourishment, Maria, that you are holding space for, and the container that you hold, and the incredible women that you magnetize together, and community forums and space that is safe. And yeah, just appreciate this offering, and sending you so much love.
Thank you. It's such a treat to have you here. I love you so much, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you, as always. Thank you. If anybody else wants to share, you can unmute yourself, no pressure. But if not, then we will start to transition to my beautiful sister Lila. Going once, going twice, going three times. Any last shares? Just want to make sure I don't cut anybody off. Okay. Well, with that, Lila, I want to honor your time, and I also want to honor that we've been sitting for an hour and we might need a 2-minute potty break. Is that okay? Balloons are like, yes, we need to pee. All right, so we're just going to take a 2-minute break. I'm going to end this recording. I'm recording each session too as a block so that when we're re-listening to the recordings, we know exactly where we're going. So Lila, we'll start a new recording for your offering, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Maria, can I say something for the ladies that don't have the video on? Just to invite them in the next 2 minutes to maybe find the little corner in the room where you would like to have it on. Because for my share, I would love to see you if that feels good to you and you're in a space where you can. So much more potent for me, the transmission, when I can connect with you and not just with a name on a screen. So just an invitation.
Right.